All right, let's do it. It's Inside Coverage here on a Thursday heading in to week number 3. Let's call this our Thursday week 3 preview show. Thanks for being here. My name is Andrew Siciliano. If you're listening on a podcast platform, we thank you. Be sure to like and share and tell your friends about it. If you're watching on yahoosports.tv, the Yahoo app, the YouTube, the Fast channel, however it is you're watching us, we thank you for, get ready for week 3 this way. It is not just my show. Matter of fact, I am just the conductor here. I am just the person who is here to help give you the knowledge from all the great Yahoo NFL writers. Our Thursday preview show, a tradition truly unlike any other. The last couple of weeks, we'll do it now for a third time. Charles Robinson in one corner, actually the center square on your screen right here, and our betting expert, our analyst in that realm, Ben Fawkes. Charles, it is a tradition. I like keeping tradition. How does the tradition so far feel to you?
What tradition are we talking about?
The tradition that the three of us, Charles, get together on Thursday before TNF to look at the weekend's game.
Fantastic. This has been a short tradition so far. I was like,
to you as it does to me.
It does not. I'm like, man, what tradition are we talking about? The three of us.
I thought
the tradition of me being in the center. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought he was talking about. I was like, you're going to ask how I feel? Well, I feel better.
That's the whole thing. I'm trying to not ask how you feel.
What a start!
So I'm in the
I feel great.
In the middle of welcoming you, and I'm like, what am I going to say? I'll say that this is our new tradition.
This is I love this tradition. It's fantastic. It's I get all my betting information now on this show. I don't make any of my picks until roughly about 5 minutes after we get off the air. And then I run and I make sure I get all my stuff in for Thursday night. I feel great, by the way, so you don't have to ask anymore. I think I've turned a corner. We're great. We're literally already in week 3. It's kind of crazy to me that's already week 3. This is rolling.
Warms my heart that you're feeling better. And for the record, I don't do any of what you just described. Ben is here for recreational purposes only, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a lot of pressure, Charles, on me here to give out winners every single week and reporting. No, happy to be here. If you see a couple more gray hairs, it's just because it's been the start of another Vikings season, and it's all gone the way we thought it would. So it's a tough, man. It's tough being a fan of the Vikings, but we do what we can.
Get on the Wentz wagon, baby. The Wentz wagon.
I'm on it.
Get on it.
I'm on it.
Lifetime Vikings fan finally playing a game for the Vikings. How do you not get excited for the Wentz wagon? After the Vikings win this week, Ben, we're getting you a Carson Wentz t-shirt, okay?
I'll be very happy if that happens. I also saw him in week 18 against the Broncos defense. And so I do have that in my mind from last season. Nobody. But we'll see. It's a new season, new Carson.
Okay. True. Also a tradition. I'm looking out. You can't see there's a window here. Also a tradition. The neighborhood kids all play football in the driveway just as we are starting this show. Truly another tradition that we're building upon here in our third in-season week of Inside Coverage. All right, let's get to the games. We can't do it necessarily every single game to preview. We're just going to go to the ones that we find most interesting, the game that I find most interesting, that we all agree when we were setting our texts around last night. How do we stack these games? Should be at the top of the pile. It's a playoff rematch from a year ago. It is the 2-0 Rams of Los Angeles going to visit the 2-0 offensively challenged when they're not pushing tushes Philadelphia Eagles. This is a rematch from the divisional round from a year ago. Rams had the ball late in the fourth quarter in the snow, and they couldn't punch it in. They turned it over on downs right outside the red zone on a Matthew Stafford incompletion to Cooper Kupp. This game is a Joe Davis, Greg Olsen, Pam Oliver, Fox production. Remember, the Eagles beat the Rams twice last year, and the theme in both games, Charles, was the Rams can't stop the run. The other one was a Sunday night game in L.A. I was on the sideline before the game and watching from down low during that one. Saquon in that game had 255 yards rushing. He had 302 yards from scrimmage in the 2 games last year in which the Eagles beat the Rams. Some of these numbers are just bonkers. Saquon had 4 touchdown runs of 60 or more yards, and the Eagles collectively outrushed the Rams in those two games 599. That's not a typo. 599 to 203. But this year's Eagles team can't throw the ball. The Rams know they have to run the ball, and therein, your Kevin Patullo versus Chris Shula head-to-head is your matchup.
Why do you have to worry about throwing it when, Saquon, what was it, 534 yards from scrimmage last year in the two games, 4 touchdowns?
Yeah.
It just absolutely destroyed the Rams defense last year. And, it's going to be interesting because one of the players, Nate Landman, the inside linebacker for the Rams, is off to a fantastic start. Really, really one of the bright spots, I think, of the Rams defense thus far this year. And I think the front end of that defense, particularly where it concerns rushing the passer, I don't think the Rams feel like they've gotten off to the start that they really expected. But there's no doubt. The Rams have had this circled on their calendar for a long time. I also think when I went through the Rams in the offseason and had a chance to talk to them, they felt like this was their Super Bowl left on the table. They really, truly felt like, hey, if we had won this game in the playoffs, we felt like we were going to win the Super Bowl. And obviously they come up short, but it's been one that they've been looking at for quite a while here. And, I think the Philadelphia Eagles, I understand, from a passing standpoint, they still are working to get themselves on track. But again, it's early. I don't think they're overly alarmed about where they're going. I if anything, I think through two games, they're more distracted with all the complaints about the tush push. And I'd love to hear from you guys, because now we're hearing Jason Kelsey is complaining about it. He's not even playing anymore. And he's complaining about how many times people are talking about this. I would not be surprised if the Rams have not been on the phone with the league office saying, hey, they better not be moving before that ball snapped, considering some
McVay
of the
said it on the podium
footage
too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
We all saw it.
Yeah, there's no question. There's definitely been false starts that have been circulating on social media. It's been a hot topic all week long, and the Eagles have been very touchy about it. But I don't think there's any question that what we saw last week in terms of that rolling start with the tush push and how often the Eagles used it, I don't think they're going to get away with it in this game.
Yeah, the tush push aside, I think, right, every other NFL team, if you have that type of weapon and you could use it, you would, right? We've seen the Eagles are just that much more effective at it. But even just putting that slight doubt into the referees' minds or the other team is a huge thing, right? Because we're talking about that could be 3rd and goal at the 1. Now you have a false start. Now it's 3rd and goal at the 6, right? Or 4th and goal at the 1, 4th and goal at the 6 can completely change the outcome of a game. So I think we'll probably see one of those in the coming weeks. The Eagles are good enough to win these games without that play, but also they're not going to not run it just because other teams are complaining about it, because it's obviously incredibly successful and really unique to the team. I think that's probably what grates some of the Eagles players, is just the fact that people are focusing on that as opposed to the fact they're winning all these games aided by that play. But obviously would be winning, most, if not all these games, regardless, without that play, probably as well. From a betting perspective, this is a really interesting game. This in the preseason, because sportsbooks put out lines for every game, this was Eagles minus 4.5. And I think you'd think maybe based off of the first 2 weeks, it would open a little differently. Just the Rams by DVOA, they're the number 2 team in the NFL right now. The Eagles 12th, according to FTN Fantasy's numbers. This opened again, Eagles minus 4.5. But the sharp money's come in on the Rams, and this line's down to 3.5 at just about every book, even touching 3 at one book. So the sharp money on the Rams, I think the public will be on the Eagles. A lot of Eagles money line money that we've seen people figuring, hey, I don't want to risk the 3.5 points for them to cover. I'm just going to take the Eagles straight up. And we certainly saw what they did in the playoffs. Saquon Barkley is that one player, right? The Rams, I forget who the safety was, takes a bad angle on one run. All of a sudden, instead of it's a 10, 15-yard gain, it's a touchdown. Add to that the elements with the snow. That was a really close game, and certainly one the Rams could have won. And I'm sure they're going to feel that way. And I think Charles as well, like the number one thing and one of the biggest storylines heading into the season was Matthew Stafford's back. He didn't practice. How is he going to look? He certainly has looked good so far through 2 weeks. And if his back is healthy and holds up, I think the Rams are a Super Bowl contender. I think a lot of people feel that way. It's just difficult to back them before the season, before you see it and you know. And again, we're only in week 3 here. But that's the big question mark, certainly in this game and obviously for the rest of the season for the Rams.
Yeah, I'll back up what Charles was saying. The Rams do firmly believe that if they had beaten the Eagles, they would have beaten the Commanders. That game would have been at home. They would have hosted the NFC Championship game. And then when you see what the Eagles did to the Chiefs, and the Rams feel their pass rush down the stretch last year was just as good as Philadelphia's, if not better, they would have done the same thing to the Chiefs. And they truly think they would have won the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter. They didn't win in Philadelphia. So that doesn't matter. It's all irrelevant. But now this is a game that they have circled. Kobe Turner during training camp or right before training camp, Rams defensive tackle in his 3rd year, the conductor, as they call him, was not afraid to say, I'm circling the game in Philadelphia week 3. So this one does truly mean something to them. And it does mean something. Forget about how sensitive the Eagles can be. And Jordan Mailata cursed a little bit on the radio this week, saying for anyone who says this is a rugby play, they don't know what the bleep they're talking about. And he knows rugby, clearly. He came to the U.S. as a rugby player. The Eagles just don't lose. And since the bye, remember when last year Nick Sirianni was yelling at the fans. They had just come back from the bye. They barely beat the Browns. This team has won 18 of 19 games, but they right now have trouble completing forward passes. And no matter what you say about the tush push, the fact that they're not stretching the field in the passing game cannot be denied. Jalen Hurts has, as we see these stats here for Brown, Jalen Hurts has 2 downfield completions. And we're not talking 25 yards downfield. We're talking 10 yards downfield. He has 2 in 2 games. That's it.
Great.
The only other quarterback with fewer, actually, no. He is the only one with that few. And in terms of overall passing offense, only the Titans are worse. That's it. So they're not completing forward passes, but they're winning games because they do run the ball that effectively. I would go with the Rams here, but I'm just going straight up with my heart. That's my gut. I feel this one truly does mean something to them. And I'm going to go on that angle. All right, let's move on here to the 49ers and the Cardinals. And as we sit here recording this show right now, both Mac Jones and Brock Purdy are talking in the Niners locker room. There is a chance Brock Purdy is going to be able to play in this game. It is a big NFC West battle here between 2-0 teams. Surprisingly, last year, Arizona actually swept San Francisco. Now, in one of those games, Purdy didn't play, but, just keep that in mind. This is a Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins game. No, I got that one wrong. Look at the wrong one. This is an Adam Amin, Mark Sanchez, and Christina Pink game. This game is also significant in the NFC West because of the fact the NFC West plays the AFC South and the NFC South this year. Like, people say, the Niners have a weak schedule. That's across the board. In this division, they've been beating up, and they will have a chance to beat up on 2 bad divisions. The Niners are too banged up. I am not sold on the Cardinals defensively here, but something tells me this is, Charles, Arizona's moment to surprisingly go to 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Arizona, granted, they've had some issues defensively. It's not like they've been perfect. The back end, the secondary's jacked up right now. I mean, you have multiple corners where we'll see if Will Johnson plays. We'll see if Max Melton plays. There's no doubt that they're banged up on the back end. And oddly enough, whether or not Brock Purdy plays, Mac Jones looked really good against the Saints. Like, I was stunned at how efficient and confident that Mac Jones looked. I mean, 279 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He's doing it with Jawan Jennings. He's doing it with Ricky Pearsall, Tonjes at tight end. I mean, it's an efficient 49ers offense with Mac Jones in there. Now we'll see if you can carry that over. But really, I think for the Cardinals, I talked to Jonathan Gannon. The one thing he said to me is he's like, look, if our front end of our defense is healthy, we're going to rotate in a ton of defensive linemen. You're going to see a lot of guys that get sacks. I mean, Calais Campbell had a couple of sacks last week. I think for the Cardinals to be successful in this game, whether it's Purdy who plays, whether it's Mac Jones who plays, I think they want to be able to see that front end of their defense get to the quarterback and continue to replicate that early success that they've had, particularly if on the back end you're going to be missing, corners, potentially missing 2 starting corners and a nickel.
Yeah.
You got to get to the quarterback up front if you're the Cardinals.
Yeah, and as Charles said, Garrett Williams on IR as well. So
yeah, Garrett Williams on IR, the nickel. Yeah, yep.
Right. He's out. Max Melton, like you said, knee. Will Johnson practiced with a groin. And that's part of the reason we've seen this total, which was at 43.5, go up to 45.5, even 46.5 at a couple books based off of that and the potential that, like we said, Purdy could play. The Cardinals actually opened as a favorite in this game. There was some sharp money, I think probably getting ahead of that Purdy news at around pick. And the Niners are now a 2.5 point favorite, even a 3 point favorite at one book. Again, this will probably shift back a bit if Purdy doesn't go. But I think, given the fact he's at least at practice doing something, there's obviously a little more feeling that he could go. And like we talked about last week with that difference in the point spread between the quarterbacks, a lot of it is that infrastructure, right? And Kyle Shanahan has had a lot of success, like we've talked about with Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, hopefully, knock on wood, with a bunch of different quarterbacks, right? And so it's not just that, it's also the defense. And so you feel like Mac Jones isn't as big a downgrade talent-wise and with that infrastructure as he otherwise would be maybe on a different team from Brock Purdy. Interesting, though, the Cardinals, I thought based off of the first 2 games, obviously playing 2 lower teams, and don't get me started on the Cardinals minus 6.5 and not covering last week. That was one of the worst beats you'll see against the Panthers. But the Cardinals are actually 7th in DVOA, and the 49ers are 13th through 2 weeks. So the Cardinals, even though they played 2 bad teams, the advanced stats still kind of like what they've seen from them. It's just that always question. They always seem like they start strong, and then what happens kind of as it goes along with Kyler Murray. I think this is going to be a really interesting game, obviously a really important game for the NFC West.
Yeah, both teams have beaten the Saints. The Cardinals have also beaten the Panthers. Mac Jones, with his victory last week, he did something that Sam Darnold, Josh Dobbs, and Brandon Allen couldn't do, and that is win when filling in for Brock Purdy. So Mac Jones was the first to do it. And the point here about the Cardinals defense, it's not as if their offense has been doing much. They are 2-0 despite having under 300 yards of total offense in each of their 2 games. Only other team since 2000 to open up 2-0 with their first 2 games being held under 300 yards of total offense, believe it or not, was last year's Steelers team with Justin Fields as the starting quarterback. That team eventually did make the postseason, went 10-7, and then got knocked out in the wild card round. Again, look at who these divisions play when you look at overall strength of schedule. It is significant to win these games in the division, but if Arizona, or for that matter, San Francisco gets to 3-0, remember they play the AFC South and the NFC South, at least on paper right now, weaker divisions. Getting to 3-0 with a big head-to-head division win week 3 is a big deal. This show is always a big deal here. It's a tradition, unlike any other, as we just said, on a Thursday, getting you ready for week 3. Coming up, how about the AFC West? We got the Broncos and the Chargers this week. And how significant would it be for the Chiefs if they go into New York, New Jersey, and lose to the Giants to go to 0-3? We have those numbers for you. Plus, DeMarcus Ware will join us. You are watching Inside Coverage on Yahoo. Inside Coverage on Yahoo. My name is Andrew Siciliano. Charles Robinson here. Ben Fawkes is here as we, all 3 of us now, for these 3 weeks on a Thursday, get you ready for the week to come, heading into week number 3. We did the NFC West kind of, sort of, the last block. Let's do the AFC West here. And guys, let's get to the Chargers and the Broncos here. This game is in LA. It's at SoFi. It's a Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins game. Not only are the Chargers trying to go to 3-0, Denver checks in at 1-1 here. Not only are they trying to get to 3-0, but they are trying to get to 3-0 with all 3 wins in the division. That'd be huge. So you go to 3-0 in division, get your three other division games a little bit later in the year. No team has opened 3-0 with all three games being division victories since the 2006 Bears. It's been 19 years since a team did that. That 2006 Bears team, the Rex Grossman team that eventually went to the Super Bowl and lost in the rain to Peyton Manning and the Colts. That was the day where, Prince did the whole halftime thing, and, you remember that one, right? So they're trying to get out to that big of an early lead in the division, which is huge. And last year, the Chargers swept the Broncos for the first time since Phillip Rivers was the quarterback back in 2010. Now, they got to run the ball a little bit better here, Charles. Justin Herbert was the leading rusher last week, which is not going to get them anywhere come postseason. You got Amari and Hampton for a reason. You got to use him here. But the Chargers, and they're on a short week, the Chargers offensively look like Herbert has a swag we haven't seen early in his career, even though he's been great. And defensively, Jesse Minter is doing his thing. He's working that Minter magic where he is already in that early conversation for, hey, owners for teams that are going to fire their coaches likely will be calling Jesse Minter next January.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Jesse Minter, just look at the way Derwin James is playing. Like, I didn't think Derwin James could level up, and he has. I mean, Derwin James is, I would say, look, we're through two games. We don't start calling awards now, but I mean, anytime you talk about defensive player of the year conversation, guess what? Through two games, Derwin James has looked like a guy who's definitely going to be in that conversation. And look, I'm just going to tell you straight up, I apologize to Jim Harbaugh, okay? Because I went through the Chargers. They were dealing with offensive line injuries. Mike Williams retired literally the day before I got there on the first day of camp. So I'm thinking like, hey, if there's a team that could potentially have, run into the rocks here, who we expect a lot from, it's the Chargers. And yet, I don't know what it is about Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he everywhere he goes, he succeeds, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's college. It doesn't matter if it's the pros. He gets his team on the same page. And when I look offensively at what's going on with them right now, Quentin Johnston is a guy that I think he has retooled him. I mean, a guy who absolutely at times, including last year, was in the pits of despair, dropping footballs, had, considerable confidence problems, and now I think is starting to turn a corner into a deep threat / number one wide receiver territory for them. And they already kind of had that with how Ladd McConkey played last season. As you said, they have to run the ball better. Omarion Hampton has had a couple of fumbles. Harbaugh is always going to pull guys back a little bit when they're turning the ball over, and it's a costly situation. But Justin Herbert, I think we're seeing him start to trend back into that elite passer territory, which, we thought he could get there. It's always felt like he was hit by injuries or there were some skill position issues. And they go and they get Keenan Allen. They're like, okay, Mike Williams retires. What do? We wait. Okay, we'll go back and get old, reliable Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen steps in and immediately starts cranking out production for the Chargers. Again, I am floored by what I've seen Jim Harbaugh do in the face of situations where you think, hey, there's complication, there's problems, the offensive line could potentially have issues. You're flipping your right tackle to left tackle because you're, all pro left tackle. You lose them before the season starts. Mekhi Becton, what's going to happen at right guard? Is having issues in preseason. And then look at the Chargers now. I mean, like you said, they're about to potentially roll up 3 division wins in the first 3 games of the season. I will no longer question whether Jim Harbaugh can handle adversity. There's no question he can.
The apology has been given. Everything in Michigan, don't worry about that. But in the pros, we're apologizing to Jim Harbaugh. I think you hit it on the nail on the head, right? These two teams, everyone was trying to find, right, which team can unseat the Kansas City Chiefs, who won 9 straight AFC West division crowns. And I think there was some buzz for the Chargers. And then Rashawn Slater gets the big contract, gets hurt. And I think it kind of threw everyone off the scent. It was like, oh, well, now Joe Alt has to switch to right tackle. That's been totally fine. Obviously, you wouldn't think it would go necessarily as well as it has. But such a statement win in week 1 over the Chiefs, and then kind of a pedestrian workman-like, win over the Chargers in Vegas. Still a weird place to play, and a road game in division, anything can happen. And they've taken care of business and looked really good. And that defense, Chargers overall, I believe, let me say third in DVOA, so third best team through 2 weeks according to DVOA, and number 4 on defense. I think the defense has been the thing that's really stood out. Still some questions for me on offense, right? Just like if somebody doubles Ladd McConkey, what happens? I think at some point in the season, they're going to have to answer that question. But so far, so good for them. This game opened Chargers -2.5. It's mostly up to Chargers -3. Sharp money on the Chargers under a field goal, pushing this up to 3. And so far, more tickets and money on the Chargers. Probably be a little more split at that number of 3. But I think bettors have to like what they've seen from the Chargers so far. And Bo Nix, 24th in QBR through 2 games, right below Trevor Lawrence and Aaron Rodgers, which is not probably the place that you want to be. Khalil Mack, that injury as well for the Chargers. They don't have the most depth necessarily on the edge with the pass rush. So him being out for a little bit, potentially a concern, but they've been great for 2 weeks.
Yeah, they have. And Denver, I think you mentioned Bo Nix. I think he's been pressing a little bit, to be fair. The injury to Dre Greenlaw, I think, is factored. On the defensive side of things, they're blitzing a lot. Greenlaw still not back. Talanoa Hufanga is playing well. Denver is going to get after Justin Herbert. The question is, do they get home or do they get the ball out quickly? Broncos lead the NFL with 70 sacks since last year. Obviously, they had a fantastic year and everyone got paid in the offseason. But Denver blitzes as much as anyone in the NFL. Through 2 weeks, they are blitzing. And this is absurd. 51.4% of defensive snaps, which is just bonkers. Sean Payton thinks they have a Super Bowl team the first month of their season, of their schedule. Not that the Chargers were ever going to be an easy out, but this is the easier part of their schedule. They're eventually going to go over to London. They're going to get the Jets over there. They need to stack wins now because the back half of their schedule, and 10-7, for my money, isn't going to get in again. They got in last year as a third-place team, as a wild card team of the AFC West. I don't think 10-7 cuts it this year, so they need to stack wins here in September and early October. And this one, to me, I don't want to. I hate to do it means more to this team than the other, even though I just did that for the Rams 10 minutes ago. I understand that, but Denver needs this one. I don't know that they're going to get this one. They have to go to LA to get it. And I think the short week at home, well, it's a good thing for the Chargers to be at home on the short week, but I am leaning LA here as they try to go 3-0 for the first time in 23 years, believe it or not. All right, so the Chiefs are 0-2. What does that mean? We hit you with a lot of numbers these days about like 0-2 teams making the playoffs, 0-3 teams making the playoffs. And I always think that the numbers are kind of skewed because we always go back to the merger where we should really be going back to 2020 when the playoff field expanded from 12 to 14 teams. Okay, so let's just use that sample size. Since we went to the 14-game field in 2020, no team has started 0-3 and made the playoffs. That's all you got to know. No team has done it. So the Chiefs are looking at 0-3 if they don't get their offense going on the road in New York against the Giants. Now, are the Chiefs the better team? Of course they are. But if you look at this game on paper, it's going to be a rock fight, guys. I mean, neither of these teams can really move the ball. This is the Sunday night game. It's Tirico and Chris Collinsworth and Melissa Stark. I know Russell threw for 450 yards last week, but I don't see him doing that against Steve Spagnuolo. The Chiefs so badly need this game, and some of the offensive numbers are just stunningly bad. Patrick Mahomes has more rushing yards than all the other Chiefs combined. They don't have a number one back. Xavier Worthy was limited again in practice, hoping that Xavier Worthy can come back with one shoulder and all of a sudden fix the offense, Charles. That's not a strategy.
Yeah, and I mean, you look, the right side of the offensive line's not right. Okay,
no.
Now, obviously, look, Jawan Taylor. There's, injuries there that, there's some impediment. I get that, but it's been a while since this Chiefs offensive line has really truly gotten itself right. We feel like this is a repetitive conversation we're having about the Chiefs offensive line. But as you said, I mean, for Patrick Mahomes to be leading the team in rushing by such a wide margin and really carrying this offense at this stage, it's troubling. And I think it tells us, I think we talked about this earlier in the week, that this to me is just not an elite offense when you have to rely on Patrick Mahomes being, doing everything and then staring at wide receivers and going, yes, I understand Rashee Rice is out. Yes, I understand, Xavier Worthy. That's a very unfortunate injury that happens, freak injury. But it's not like we've seen anyone else on that depth chart really step into the void. Travis Kelce, there have been miscues. Again, I think we're still looking at him and going, he's not going to return to that elite form. But I've said it before, and I'm going to continue to harp on this. They need to do something in that backfield. They need to find a running back that they can count on to carry the load when they have issues. And Patrick Mahomes has to be the one, pressing that offense forward by playing out of structure and scrambling, which is just, it's nightmarish this early in the season for him to have to do that. I just stare at that trade deadline and I'm like, they should be working on this right now, because I don't see Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. I just don't see them staring at that depth chart and suddenly resolving this, particularly when the offensive line is not really playing up to the level that it needs to. You can acquire running backs in season. I think that the Chiefs absolutely have to do that, and they should be thinking about that right now rather than sitting there and going, well, everything's going to change when Rashee Rice walks through that door after 6 weeks. I just think that's such a gamble to go, everything will be fixed when this wideout comes back in.
Yeah, this is a obviously massive game for the Chiefs. This is going to be a massive game for the sports books as well. Everyone, their brother, relatives, anyone is going to have the Chiefs in a teaser, in a money line, probably also parlayed with the Packers against the Browns, and probably also with the Bills on Thursday night in the money line with the Dolphins. But the Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites here in New York. Interestingly enough, this total has come up a bit, now at 45.5, open some places 42.5. I think what's interesting, Andrew, you're mentioning the defense as well. We have such respect for Steve Spagnuolo, and he obviously is, one of the best defensive coordinators. But this defense just hasn't been the same. I wrote a piece today for Yahoo, talked to a bunch of odds makers, talked to some handicappers. And I think what struck me is some of the handicappers saying really that they downgraded this defense even more than this offense through the first couple of weeks. The defense, the defense, I believe 26th in EPA per play, dead last in success rate. So part of the reason being just not necessarily the same players. Chris Jones maybe lost a step, not a ton of edge rushers outside of Karlaftis, and just Steve Spagnuolo. There's only so much you can do, right? Even with that. And so that Eagles game, maybe a combination of bad Eagles offense more than necessarily great Kansas City defense as well, because obviously they kept that game close. I think it's always instructive to look at the betting markets. The Chiefs are 15-1 to win the Super Bowl through 2 weeks. That's their lowest or their worst odds to win the Super Bowl since Patrick Mahomes, not his rookie season, his first season as a starter in 2018. They were minus 400 to make the playoffs before the season. They're now minus 190, which is still the third best odds in the AFC. I should say, like the Colts, who are 2-0, they're only minus 135. So they still have better odds to make the postseason than the Colts, who are 2-0. So obviously expecting them to win this game, but this is a massive game. And for the sports books, everyone is going to be on the Chiefs. And I would just end with one thing. Just take a little trip down memory lane. 2023, the Chiefs went into this same stadium against Zach Wilson and the Jets, 8.5-point favorites. They did win that game. That was the game Mahomes had that slide to get the first down, didn't go in the end zone. The Jets ended up covering. That was a really close game. And I think anybody before the game would have said Zach Wilson and the Jets have zero chance of winning that game. So just be careful out there before putting too much money on Chiefs money line, Chiefs to cover this weekend.
That was also the game, if memory serves, I believe that was also a Sunday night game in which Taylor Swift was shown a bunch up in the stands.
Yes.
Sorry to go there,
it was.
people. And everyone lost their collective minds. Like, I can't believe Taylor Swift is on camera, as if it somehow took away from the game. Like, just you people, just stop, okay? Yes, I said that, and I went there. A couple things.
Andrew's still outraged about this.
Well, it's just like it doesn't speak anything about the broadcast. It actually speaks about like you inside, not you two, but like that you actually care this much to complain. The Chiefs' defense collectively, Ben, to your point, or cumulatively to your point, since 2023, still has allowed the fewest points of any team in the NFL. But yeah, it doesn't appear the same right now. They are blitzing. I mentioned the Denver blitz rate earlier. They're number 2 behind Denver, so they're going to come after Russell Wilson and make the old man beat him. Last week, he threw for 450 yards. KC's blitzing at 48.5% of the time, which is second in the NFL. The thing that blew me away, looking at the numbers for this one. So the Chiefs have spent 2 minutes and 44 seconds this year with the lead in 2 games. The team that has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback has spent 2 minutes and 44 seconds of gameplay with a lead, which is second worst in the NFL, behind only Bryce Young's Carolina Panthers that have yet to play or yet to take a snap with the lead this year. So that's it. It's Bryce Young and the Panthers, and then Mahomes and the Chiefs. That makes no sense.
You guys are You're changing my sudden death pick. As soon as we get off this, I am changing my sudden death pick for this weekend. Thank you.
I am just here to help, right? Russell Wilson, how about this? Russell Wilson has lost his last 7 starts. Last time he was the quote-unquote winning quarterback was when the Browns' second half of the year went into Pittsburgh, and they beat Jameis Winston. Russell Wilson did, Jameis Winston and the Browns. So there's that. I'm here to tell all sides of the story. Okay,
64-yard field goal, and it still haunts Russ. You know, I mean, come on, man. Like he really should have won that game. Like, good Lord.
He should have won. Coming up next, we'll look at the Monday night game, which is a fantastic game. The Lions at 1-1, the Ravens at 1-1. 2 quarterbacks, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, coming off ridiculous performances week number 2. And also coming up, the Packers are likely a Super Bowl team with Micah Parsons. But then what does that make the Cowboys? I'll ask a man who has been in Micah's shoes, DeMarcus Ware. He joins us on Inside Coverage next. You're watching Inside Coverage on Yahoo. My name is Andrew Siciliano. The Packers are 2-0. They go to Cleveland this week to play the Browns. Meantime, the Cowboys at 1-1 go to Chicago, the Matt Eberflus reunion, to play the Bears. And then next week, week 4, we got the Cowboys and the Packers in Dallas, which makes it the perfect time to talk to this guy. All right, this is a treat. Joining us on Inside Coverage, he's here on behalf of Crown Royal. Get to that in a second. He is a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's got a gold jacket. He's a former colleague. We worked together for a hot minute at NFL Network. DeMarcus Ware, how the heck are you?
Dude, I am doing great, man. I'm looking at that ball behind you with
Which
that
one?
Dallas Cowboys star on there. And you only get those for doing something great with the Dallas Cowboys. You just don't get that. And I was like, it just reminds me of the days where we have worked together and we've done some cool things. And that was the first thing that like blared out behind us is our relationship. Right?
Well,
that doesn't change.
No, it doesn't. And to explain, I really didn't do that much, DeMarcus. The Cowboys just happened to be the first team that played at SoFi when the Rams moved into that building. And I worked for the Rams for 14 years. So that was like thank you for everything you did with the Rams as we open up a new building. I just showed up for work every day.
But that's all you have to do. That's all you have to do is show up. That's all you got to do is show up. That's it.
Well, you're a good man, and I'm happy that you showed up for this. I'm going to ask you something or ask you a topic. No one's asked you about Micah Parsons, right? I'll be the first.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right, so let's go there. You left Dallas after a long, successful career there, and you went to Denver 2 years later. you won a Super Bowl. Micah Parsons left Dallas after 4 really good years there and went to Green Bay. Is Micah Parsons, DeMarcus, going to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years for the Packers?
The way that they look right now, if they're gelling and playing in the latter part of the season like they're playing right now, they have a good chance of winning the Super Bowl. I hate I I really don't want that to come out of my mouth, but in talking about the Green Bay Packers, but they have a good chance with Micah in winning the Super Bowl because he is that missing piece. Like Clark coming down here, he's a missing piece for our interior defensive line. But they had another guy after Clark that's playing well, and they didn't have Micah, though, on the edge. And now having Micah on the edge and him playing like he played, what was it, Washington that they just played?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. He was all over that quarterback. And I'm like, and that's one guy. They got more than one guy. So the sky's the limit for Green Bay, and they got a good offense that can, move the chains. And I'm just watching. I'm just watching.
The natural follow-up would be, DeMarcus, if the Packers now have the piece to win the Super Bowl, that means the Cowboys don't have the piece to win the Super Bowl, right?
So the Cowboys, Micah was a piece to win the Super Bowl, but they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl with the piece, meaning Micah, there because they had a lot of other pieces that are missing.
But you can't turn
Micah
those.
would have stayed.
Okay.
This year, they still would not have won the Super Bowl. So the Jerry Jones had to do what he needed to do, which is get rid of Micah. And now for the next 2 years, build a team to where, Micah might win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. But can the Dallas Cowboys win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years with what they just gave away and acquired? 2 more first-round draft picks, just to name those 2 things, and then having some good drafts coming in for the next 2 years. Can you build around that?
Hey, man, I'm all for building through the draft. I mean, sign me up for that. But you're telling your fans it's kind of hurry up and wait. And you're also kind of telling your fans, aren't you, that this is a transition year? Dak played his tail off that Giants game on Sunday.
He did.
But you're kind of telling the locker room, and I know that, by all accounts, the locker room said, okay, we can handle this, thumbs up. Like, we can do this if you make this trade. But you're kind of telling the locker room, we're in a transition year, aren't you?
I'm telling the locker room that everybody has an opportunity to step up to show who they are. The front 4 on the defensive line, the back 7 on the defense, when now is not geared on Micah. It's geared on how our team plays. And Dak is playing, the offense is playing good enough, putting up that amount of points to win football games. But on the defense, the ones are playing great. But when the 2s go in there, they're not. So I'm trying to figure out now how can the 1s and 2s mesh together to create a good, consistent defense to keep the points down, to win some football games, and then let's see what happens.
Hey, a quick thought here on the idea that any publicity is good publicity. Jerry has leaned into that a lot, right? Hey, as long as you're saying our name right and our name is in the headlines, like that is good for the brand. It is good for the business. You lived it, DeMarcus. Is it good for the team?
Only if the team is good. It's put like this. When I'm playing and when I'm focused, I don't care who's talking about me. I care about how the locker room is and what the guys are saying. The media or the marketing, when it's out there and they're talking about you, you can use it for good or bad because you're always in the media's mouth or you're in the light. But in the locker room, who's the light? Who are we talking about? And that's where I think the question you're getting at to it is, it really, they're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be every game. If they win the game, they're making the Super Bowl. If they lose the game, they're not going to make the Super Bowl ever since 1996. But who is the captain now? Where's the light at? where are the leaders coming in at? You know, where is that part at? And how are we going to build to now? Who are we going to be talking about now with the Dallas Cowboys to lead them to a new championship?
Yeah, I totally get it. I've tried to tell people over the years, try to tell fans that it doesn't matter if the Cowboys win or lose. The Monday morning spin will always be, but is something wrong one way or the other? And that's just how those shows work behind the scenes. Real quick, before we hit Crown Royal, Von Miller said he is only playing to pass you. Did you hear this? He's like 8.5
No,
seconds.
I didn't.
Okay. I'm going to read you the quote. He said, I'm going to get you the quote. Von is 8.5 behind you. He said, I need 9.5 more sacks to pass DeMarcus. He said, if I had 140 sacks, I could retire, but he needs to pass you, and then he'll retire. Do you want Von Miller to pass you, DeMarcus?
That would be great.
Okay.
That would be great because
just to set him free.
Just to set him free, right? to set him free, him retire and just sell off into the sunset because he's actually on a good team to where
yes, he is.
He get a lot of pass rushing opportunities and able to do that. And I think like that'll be a great like itch for him to make in the Hall of Fame. If he gets to that point where, like, you know, he has more sacks than me. That's like my little brother. So I hope he does. I hope he gets 100. I hope he gets 10 sacks this year.
10 sacks. He get his gold jacket in 5 years and that he can call it quits. You're doing great work with Crown Royal, not only this weekend, but throughout the year. DeMarcus, tell me about this weekend.
Yeah, man, I'm doing some exciting stuff. I'm going back to Dallas. I'm here. We're going to the Star this Sunday. And we're just going to do some cool stuff, a new activation. Every year we're doing a really cool activation. So they're going to be some military winners there. They're going on a private tour at the Star. And I'm going to surprise them. I'm actually going to be their tour guide. So I'm going to take them around the whole Star Museum is what we call it over there. And, with Crown Royal being the official sponsor of the NFL, they do a lot of stuff with the NFL, but they are now meshing in country music because we're going to have a huge watch party right after that. So Kane Brown is going to be performing. It's not going to be, the old regular old music. This is a live concert that we're having here at the Star. You know how they do it big there. And I'm just great to partner with them every single year doing something cool for the community, but also our servicemen and women. And from the Purple Bag Project we've done to the Crown Royal rig that they are doing for the second year this year. So just teaming up with them, doing some really cool things and helping out in the community, which now we can get the NFL fans, which are the biggest fans in any sport, and doing some purposeful in our community.
Yeah, and I know helping veterans is big with you as well. So tip of the cap to you on that. And maybe, just maybe, Troy will beat Clemson next time. This close, dude. This close.
You got me.
No, hey, I went to Syracuse, man. I want you to beat Clemson.
Going to say that too.
Look, that's the Syracuse helmet, man. Please beat Clemson. I'm on your side, buddy.
Yeah, I listen. I wish they would have beat Clemson. Maybe they wouldn't be in the little bag that they're in right now. So hopefully, they get everything together.
DeMarcus Ware, the Hall of Famer, here on behalf of Crown Royal. Great stuff in Dallas with them this weekend. It is always a pleasure to speak to you, sir. Have fun this week and hope we do this again soon.
All right. Thank you so much. You take care, man.
See you.
All right. Bye.
All right. Great stuff there with DeMarcus Ware, preaching a little patience for Cowboys fans, which I don't know if that's ever been a thing. But we'll wait and see again. Cowboys and Packers coming up week 4. Let's get back to our week 3 preview and bring back Charles Robinson and Ben Fawkes. And guys, let's do the Monday night game. This is the Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and Lisa Salters game, of course. It's the Lions and the Ravens. The game is in Baltimore. Each team is 1-1. Each team looked bad. Well, I don't know if the Ravens looked bad. They had a bad fourth quarter in Buffalo. They lost week 1. They came back with virtuoso offensive performances, at least when you look at the final scoreboard from the two quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson, and both got even and got wins week number 2. Although the Ravens could not really run the ball, Lamar and Derrick Henry against the Browns defense, right now the number 1 total defense in the NFL through 2 weeks, were held only 36 combined rushing yards, which is kind of bonkers. Detroit last won an NFL game in Baltimore in 1977. They beat the Colts. Okay. The Ravens are 6-1 all time against the Lions, 4-0 in Baltimore. I don't know that any of this truly matters. I think what does matter is that when this game was put on Monday night, week 3, we saw this as a Super Bowl preview. Charles, I'll start with you. Do you still see this as a Super Bowl preview?
And that's a good question. Look, I still think the potential is there. There's no question in my mind. And I think it's because when I look at these two teams, I don't think we've gotten the best out of them in terms of both sides of the football, right? I think the Ravens, there's no question, defensively, they're not playing up to the level that normally we would be used to and where we would expect them to be at the end of the year. They're not running the ball effectively, which, come on, that cannot possibly last. And yet, here they are right now. They blow out the Browns in week 2. And then I look at the Lions and I feel the same way. I still think defensively they have not completely come together and turned a corner. Aiden Hutchinson is nowhere near the level he was playing at when he got hurt last season. I still think there are young components there. Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch is playing at a high level, but there's still young pieces of that defense you can see coming around. And yet offensively, Detroit did look like that Super Bowl caliber team last week against the Bears that we expected to enter the season. Now, the question is, did they look that way because that's what Detroit really is? Or did they look that way because they played the Chicago Bears and that's going to be a get-right team over the course of the season? I watched that game, wrote coming out of that game. And to me, I think the one thing you take away is, Dan Campbell afterward, he said, he's talking to the team and he's giving his post-game speech and he said, it's like they forgot we're bleeping fighters. Like that's just that mentality that he brings to the table. And I do think in tough times when people are questioning them and they got really chippy about it leading into that Bears game, that this is what comes out of them. You still see that identity. But I think it's better to know that, Jared Goff again played. He throws 5 touchdown passes, remarkably efficient. They run the football with dominance. They had big explosives. The offensive line played really, really well. At least from the offensive standpoint, that identity to me is still a Super Bowl offense. And I can't not believe that the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson's playing really well right now. He's not running, as much, but he's playing very well in the pocket, throwing the football. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Extremely effective and efficient. I still look at both of these offenses as being Super Bowl caliber. We'll see where the defenses are by the end of the season.
This is another game like week 1 with Bills-Ravens where I'm just like, let's fast forward to this one. All right, really excited to see these two teams. I had Bills-Lions as my Super Bowl pick in our Vegas show, so I'm certainly hoping it's at least part of a Super Bowl preview. For selfish reasons. But this, in the offseason, this opened Ravens -3.5, reopened on Sunday, Ravens -6. So based off of those 2 weeks,
wow.
Obviously bookmakers favoring the Ravens a little more. Odds makers that I spoke to last week and obviously this week, they actually raised the Ravens 0.5 point off of that Buffalo loss. So for a lot of odds makers, the Ravens are the number 1 power rated team just because of how good they looked. And they almost stack and have more importance on those 3 quarters where they were up, 40-25 or something, as opposed to a semi-fluky kind of, obviously the Bills ended up winning, but a Derrick Henry fumble. They didn't really stop the Ravens offense too much in that game. So came away even more impressed really with the Ravens from that game. Sharp money has come in on the lines to push this down. So we're now at Ravens -4.5. We'll see if it gets to that kind of preseason number of 3.5, total up slightly to 53.5. I thought interesting as well. They did play this game a couple years ago in Baltimore. I believe Baltimore closed a 3-point favorite. 38-6 was the final score. The Ravens beating the Lions. Obviously different teams, but the Lions, that was kind of the first year they were a different Lions team. And Jared Goff, just very different splits, outdoors versus indoors in a dome. Again, Ravens different team than the Packers, but we saw how they looked week 1. That was also outside, not on turf. And then how they looked week 2. I do think, I agree with Charles, the Bears defense has a lot to do with that. I think probably going up against their former offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, also had something to do with that. But they looked like that old Lions team indoors. I'm just wondering if we'll really see that Ravens team and say, hey, the Ravens and the Bills are a cut above everyone, even the Lions, and especially at home. So I think it's going to be a fascinating game, both from a betting perspective and just watching straight up.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because you got to factor in the Browns defense here, and I'm not just being a homer. If you look at what Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry did against the Bills, the two of those guys combined for 237 rushing yards. 237. That's absurd. They combined for 36 against the Browns. And Lamar almost got picked off in the end zone. Devin Bush, a second quarter red zone play, had his hands on a pass on third down that he couldn't bring down. The Ravens' interior of their offensive line was getting beaten by Mason Graham and Malik Collins. Wasn't Linderbaum's best day. Wasn't Lele's best day. Ronnie Staley didn't have a great day against Myles Garrett. What the Browns front seven does, not a lot of teams can do. However, the Lions are really good at stopping the run. If you want to go back to 2023, and last year I know all the pieces were in pieces, but the Lions have allowed 94.3 rush yards a game since 2023. So the last 2 seasons plus 2 games, which is the best in the NFL. That to me is the battle here. Can the Ravens run the football effectively? When they don't, they have Zay Flowers, who on any other team would be a top of the marquee. They run the mesh concepts. They get him in space and zone, or rather in the quick game, and they run screens. And that guy is just beyond dangerous. And then DeAndre Hopkins is getting, 10 snaps a game? And you just underthrow some deep balls, and he's going to come back and beat the corner. He's got that savvy old man game that you see from that guy at the gym where you can't figure out how he's beating you with that little turnaround hook. He's still that guy.
YMCA game.
And, you know what I'm saying? And the Ravens, in my eyes, are the better team, and they're at home. Now, with all that said, is this a Super Bowl preview? I don't know that either team has shown the fortitude in January to make it there. But right now, for my money, get your popcorn ready, and I'll be sitting on the couch. And this one is great on a Monday night. And I would lean Ravens, but, that's maybe I have some AFC North bias here. But they are pretty good. Pretty good. And remember, this is without Jair Alexander. And with that defense still, as Marlon Humphrey said, not yet mature. Jair Alexander was a healthy scratch last week because he isn't really healthy, and we saw that week 1. So they're going to round into form, I think, eventually. And they will be there come January. What happens in January is anyone else's guess. By the way, there are other good games this week. These are just the ones that we chose to circle. But we will be back on Monday to break down any and everything that we saw, the how and the why for week number 3. I feel like I cut you guys off before at least once. So Charles, Ben, any final thoughts? Charles, you want to go first?
Oh, I was just going to say, when you're talking about DeAndre Hopkins getting 10 snaps and wearing guys out, it's like when you're in high school and you're playing basketball and the shop teacher shows up and then posts you up and absolutely obliterates you for 15 minutes. And you're like, this guy's 50 and he's killing me right now. And that's DeAndre Hopkins at this stage of his career.
It's 100%.
I was just going to say
what he is.
I was just going to say, Andrew, as well. I think the Ravens are also just judged on a different curve, right? I forget the exact stats, but Lamar Jackson's 72 and 20 something in the regular season and 3 and 5 in the playoffs, right? So
it's unbelievable.
They're going to the postseason. They're going to be there, but they tend to beat themselves. Can they not do it this year?
And he has right now. He is the highest rated passer in the history of the NFL. Something like that, right? Didn't that happen 2 weeks ago? He officially took that throne for those who love passer rating, and that's a different conversation. But why enjoy this conversation? For Ben, for Charles, my name is Andrew. Enjoy week 3. This is Inside Coverage. See you soon.